Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to give just about another 30 seconds here to make sure that everyone is able to join us, and then we're going to get started. So we've got a couple of presenters we're going to be introducing. We really appreciate your attendance. We've got a lot of great information to share. So hopefully by now, everyone has been able to join, and you can see my beginning slide. What we're doing today is taking you through a webinar around the MiVoice Connect migration. So if you've been invited to today's seminar and you're able to join us, it's because you've been an Eastern DataComm MiVoice Connect customer for some time. And I'm going to use a couple of phrases intermingly, and I hope I don't confuse anyone. But just to take us back a little bit, the phone system that you're working on today, when you purchased it, was known as ShoreTel. Mitel bought ShoreTel some years ago, and we changed that name to MiVoice Connect. So if you hear ShoreTel or MiVoice Connect, just be assured that it is the current platform that you're on today. There are some changes coming. They've been announced for some time now. So the platform that you're on today is going to be coming to an end of life in the next few years. And we want to share some plans and migration and upgrade programs with you today and assure you that we're going to be able to get you to the next platform seamlessly and help you get there. So a couple of housekeeping tips. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a Q&A tab. At any time during the presentation, please feel free to check that tab and put any questions that you may have into that form. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and hopefully we'll be able to get to all of your questions at that time. If by any chance the hour runs out and there's a question or two that we've not been able to answer, be assured that we will be responding to each individual person who asks those questions, and we'll be providing those Q&As after the webinar as well. This webinar is being recorded. It will be available shortly upon ending on our website for you to be able to review and share with any teammates that may have not been able to make it with us today. So let's move on, and let me introduce our presenters as well as the agenda. So first and foremost, I'm Mary Lou Wallner. I've had the pleasure of working with many of you over the past 5 years. I've been with Eastern DataComm about that length of time. Prior to my tenure here at Eastern DataComm, I was with ShoreTel for 9 years. And prior to that, I was with Mitel for well over 10 years. So I've got a little bit of knowledge about what we're going to be discussing today. We also have Ed Blanchard on with us, and Ed is going to be taking us through, he's our Mitel AE. He's going to be taking us through some of the migration platform options, as well as the important milestones over the next couple of years of what everyone needs to be cognizant of and what we need to do in order to migrate up to the MiVoice Business platform. And then Sid Rice, who's also on with us today, he's our sales engineer, and he's going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into MiVoice Business platform and some of the benefits and capabilities of that. And then, as I said, we'll get to the Q&A at the end of the session. So I want to update you just a tiny bit on Eastern DataComm. There's been some changes, some good changes that have occurred over the past little while. Apologies, I'm having trouble moving to the next slide. Jason, there we go. All right. So a lot of you on this call have been with Eastern DataComm. We've been your partner for many, many years, some as many as 10 to 15 years. Eastern DataComm is actually going on close to our 40th year of business. So we started back in the 80s as really a communications company providing solutions, phone systems, associated technologies like paging solutions, IT infrastructure, and things of that nature. Over the past 10 to 15 years, we've been very much focused on securing our customers' solutions, so more around security and security solutions. We developed our Lens lockdown emergency notification solution well over 10 years ago, and that has been a very great platform for us and for our customers. Many of you are on our Lens platform. And it's really been something that our customers have had great success with, and the industry has had great, things to say about it. So in addition to the Lens platform, we like to holistically take a look at our customers' communications and safety solutions, introduce other things like video surveillance, access control, all of those things that go around securing your infrastructure and communications. And that is really what the mainstay of our business has been. So we've had a couple of changes over the past few years. We've actually made some acquisitions, 3 acquisitions in the past 2 years, which has really allowed us to broaden our footprint as well as our solutions that we're able to offer our customers. So in addition to our headquarters in Hackensack, New Jersey, we now have offices in Warren, New Jersey, in Long Island, and also in North Carolina. And along with those acquisitions, some of those solutions that we've been able to bring forth to our customers has been expanded IT solutions, including cybersecurity, AV and theatrical lighting. So think about your high school auditoriums and needs around that. And cellular repeaters is something that has really become a big part of our business. So as we know, many of our buildings, especially those older school buildings, were built like bunkers back in the day, really difficult to get good cellular service inside some of those areas. So we have a capability now of offering you being able to bring that wireless cellular service that's outside the building into the building, and customers have really been enjoying that and taking advantage of it. So we're going to go through a number of things around the migration path today. Life cycle timelines, very important, key dates for when support and licensing and hardware is available, what those migration options are. Mitel's done a great job of putting a program around incentives and upgrade paths to make this as painless as possible for you. And through it all, know that Eastern DataComm is going to be with you to help you get there. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ed Blanchard and let him take us through some of the Mitel timelines and upgrade programs.
Thank you, Mary Lou. And thank you to the Mitel customers. We really appreciate it. Not trying to brag, but did want to give you a quick update on Mitel. So with over 80 million global users, we are the #1 unified communications provider in the world. We have over 2,100 patents, so we're a very innovative company. And we've got a new capital structure that infused millions of dollars so we can further expand our applications. For the MiVoice Connect, we're committed to 3 things. We're going to give a clear life cycle timeline, a strong migration program to the MiVoice Business, and we'll ensure that the MiVoice Connect remains fully supported during the transition period. We're going to do this with Eastern DataComm, who's one of Mitel's largest and very best partners. In terms of the time frame, there's 3 milestones I want to point out with this slide. So the end of user license sales is December 31st, 2025. So please, by the end of this year, if you need to add users, it's very important that you do that before the end of the year. The second milestone I'll point out is that at the end of 2028, that will be the end of hardware repair. So currently what happens if you have a system that goes down, Mitel Advanced replaces it to Eastern Datacom. That program will end at the end of 2028. And then the end of technical support is the end of 2029. So at the end of this decade, the system will end technical support. I do want to encourage you to consider migrating sooner. So the MiVoice Business It's a really powerful, it's an award-winning platform. It's superior, and we'll show you how today, but it's got an industry-leading call control, artificial intelligence, strong mobility, soft phones. It's really got the best deployment options. To give you a feel for the scale of the system, local organizations that use it, the School District of Philadelphia uses the MiVoice Business, and the New York City Department of Education, which is the largest school district in the country, they use the MiVoice Business. When you're ready, we've got a strong MiVoice Connect migration program. So we have a migration program for the licenses and a migration program for the phones. And then we also have a series of migration tools that will make the extracting that information easier and gives us the capability of doing just a very easy and simple migration when you're ready to move forward. With that, I will hand it over to Sid.
Okay. So can I advance that? Yes, good. Good morning, everyone. So when we look at MiVoice Business, the first thing I think of is flexibility. So when you look at it, we have flexibility in deployment, but also in how you actually consume it. So first, much like the Connect system, I can actually do controllers. So you see on the left-hand side there, excuse me, I can put in purpose-built Mitel controllers that I use with the system. I can also put it directly on a industry standard server. So unlike Connect, where you had an HQ server that was built on Windows, we actually use something called Mitel Standard Linux. So if you want to get to the details, it's actually something called Rocky Linux that we then harden and we make into Mitel Standard Linux. So the main controller is not running Windows, which tends to be a good thing for security and patching and all that type of things. Next up, when you look at it, we can also deploy in a virtual environment. So there are 4 different hypervisors we support today: VMware, Nutanix, Hyper-V, or Proxmox. So we, again, in our history, were the first to actually create voice in a virtual environment with VMware. So that's really kind of our preferred method, is to deploy in that virtual environment. And that also can save you because, again, you don't have different hardware pieces, the parts are not going obsolete, etc. But we can deploy, whether it be, in hardware or in a virtual environment. We can extend that and deploy it into a public cloud. So we've tested and documented with Azure and Amazon Web Services, as well as we have partnerships with companies that have data centers. So let's say you already have a data center, you can certainly put our solution in that data center, or we can go with one of the solutions that we pair with, or Azure or Amazon. As far as deployment, one other thing to point out is you can either CapEx purchase or OpEx subscribe. So again, flexibility with the Connect system, it was always just a purchase. We know that some customers want to deploy it, for example, in a virtual environment. They're going to be paying for a monthly bill anyway, so they want to go ahead and make the whole thing a monthly bill, and we can certainly do that. As far as management, so we have a lot of the good things from Connect. So the people that created our management interface, it's a web-based interface, very similar to what you had with the Connect system, that, easy to go in and change button programming, things like that, or a user's voicemail password, whatever you need to do. We also have the option for tools like Mitel Performance Analytics. So this gives me diagnostic capabilities. So Ed mentioned a couple of our customers. One of our other customers is City of Baltimore. So City of Baltimore actually uses Mitel Performance Analytics. So if there's an issue with the phone system, their techs will get a SMS, a text message in the middle of the night, whatever time it happens. They can go and make the repairs. You can also use MPA to do things like diagnostics, see what the call quality is, etc. When we look at the phones, so just be aware. So first of all, as Ed kind of pointed to, you're moving to the 6900 series phones. When Mitel bought ShoreTel a few years back, actually ShoreTel was looking at moving to a new set of phones, so they very quickly adopted our 6900 series phones. So we have, again, flexibility. I have a break room, I have a classroom, I want a basic phone. We have the 6905 or 6910. Most desktop users use the 6915 or the 20. So the difference is there. The 6915, good desktop everyday phone, but no accessories on it. The 6920, you see there's a W, that's Wi-Fi. So that phone has Wi-Fi built into it, just like the 30 and the 40 do. So that was something we picked up during the pandemic. So we had people that needed to work from home and they wanted to take their phone there, but oh, by the way, their access point was maybe in their basement and their office was on their first floor. So instead of having to drill a hole in the floor, that Wi-Fi phone can pair, you can actually program it to wirelessly connect to your access point and basically be, working over wireless. That also can be applicable where you have like maybe a loading dock or an area where there's not a cable running to an area. It's not meant to have every phone in a building be on Wi-Fi, but again, for places that you need it, it's a built-in option. You'll also notice there's a Bluetooth symbol there. So these phones can pair directly with the phone. So with your like cell phone. So you notice the thing we have there called PC Link or Mobile Link. So I can actually use the phone on my desk as a talk path for my cell phone, pull the contacts in, things like that with Bluetooth. Finally, you see a T there. The T is that antimicrobial, that biocoat. So for areas that may be common, like for in a medical facility or maybe a school where lots of people are touching the phone, we can use a phone that has a treatment that inhibits the growth of bacteria basically and makes it something a little safer there. So those are some of the different options. The difference between the 6920 and the 30, that 20 can use the sidecar you see there with 28 buttons on the bottom. So I can actually have up to 3 of those. So I'm a admin for a school district, whatever, and I need to be able to see buttons for everybody in the school. I can actually have a phone, but then have 3 of those daisy chained on it that have 3 times 28 buttons. The other option, see at the bottom there, the DEC headset. I use that myself. So DEC is a protocol that lets me be up to 300 feet away from the phone. So I can maybe be working in a computer room. I'm working on different computers and I've got a hands-free headset. It's got an answer, hang up, mute. I've got a volume up, volume down. So I could be walking around wherever doing things on different computer terminals, etc. So that can work off of the 30 or the 40. And then the 30 also has more buttons than the 20. And then finally, that 40 is a touchscreen phone. And you'll notice there's no cable on that handset. It actually pairs Bluetooth right to the phone. For schools, another thing that's obviously important, as you know, is security. So what if someone, you had to call the plumber, they're going to come and fix something? Well, you want to verify that who this is at the door. We don't make camera phones, a door phone there, but again, you can source those through Eastern DataComm, but we can pair that where it's sending a picture every second to a phone. So you can actually see, yes, this is the plumber, this is the electrician, this is whoever, and yes, I should do a door release and let them in. For in-building wireless, we have 3 different options. So as Ed mentioned earlier, we're #1 worldwide in DEC. So these are our DEC phones. So DEC is a different frequency. So sometimes that becomes important because that different frequency, maybe I have interference on the Wi-Fi spectrum, but also they have some additional features. So these phones have a button on them that I could use to trigger an alert. So let's say I'm a school safety officer, I want to trigger an alert. I can press the button on the phone, it can trigger the alert. It also has a man down feature where if the phone's orientation changes, so it's set like you have it on your waist and you're up and down, if you fell over and it notices you fell over, it has a timer and it will actually make a phone call after that timer is triggered. So those are some of the things with DEC. Those can be used indoor or outdoor. So if you have, case in point, like a bus stop where you want to be able to have somebody out there on a phone, you can have an access point outside as well. So those are things you could do with DEC. Wi-Fi, if you have a robust Wi-Fi network, we also make Wi-Fi phones. So those can be used to roam through the hallways and whatever you need to do. Finally, I'll bring your attention to something that I've done with some retirement communities. So we can use the mobile client that we have, MyCollab, on a cell phone. So in the case of the retirement community that I'm speaking of, they needed to have an app so that when they go check in on the patient, they can log things in the app on the iPhone. So they used an iPhone with no SIM card, just Wi-Fi, put the MyCollab client on there, and now they have their app and they have the phone on a single device. So I mentioned MyCollab. So MyCollab is our UC desktop app and also our mobile app. So you can first of all use this to call from. So if I'm, let's say I was a doctor and I'm out on the golf course, whatever, and I need to call a patient back, it's going to hide that number. So when I call using the app, it's going to call from the phone system and show my caller ID as if I'm actually, in the office or whatever. So that's the first thing. It can also be used for team collaboration. I can chat with an individual. Here at Mitel, I'm part of an SE group. If there's a technical question that we need to ask, I can ask the group. One of the other members can jump in and answer that question. I can use it to control my desktop phone. So I can click on the client and my phone will go off hook and dial, much like the Connect client if you're using that. I see my president's information, and I can either manually set that or I can have it, for example, tied into my Outlook or my Google Calendar, where if I go into a meeting, it changes the status on my phone. So those are all things I can do with MyCollab. We don't have to use MyCollab. So if you're somebody who's actually decided, you know what, I like Zoom as a desktop client, I'm using it for video and I use that for messaging, whatever, or using Microsoft Teams for that. So we can actually tie into those tools. So again, that flexibility I mentioned before, we can actually use the Zoom desktop client integrated with MiVoice Business. We can use Microsoft Teams integrated with MiVoice Business. So you have the kind of best of both worlds. You've decided you want this as your client, but you need that reliable phone system that you know is not going to go down. Also, for integration, we have a thing called Workflow Studio. So this is something that we host in our what we call Cloud Link, and this opens up the API. So this gives us the ability to tie into the API. So now I can actually write an application and have it integrate with the phone system. So this is a low-code tool, so it's an easy to program kind of tool to create a flow. So a couple of examples of that. First, and this one I like for schools. So schools tend to be paid, they get their money based on attendance. So, if you have a lot of people that are, absent all the time, whatever, that could be an issue. Well, I can have an application, and this is something that was written custom for someone. So I call in, and let's say I'm calling in for Johnny. Johnny's going to be out sick today. So I'm going to call in, it's going to play a greeting and give the caller instructions. It's going to record the student's name and the reason for the absence. It's going to convert that into text, take the details out of them and log it. As you kind of see the example at the bottom there, it's going to log that call into an Excel spreadsheet. But then it's going to do one more thing. It's going to actually send out a message to the parent so they can verify, yes, this really was me saying that they could be out today. So you don't have a student basically calling in and saying, yeah, I'm dying of the flu, I can't come in today. No, the parent's going to get notified and verify that really was true. Another example, and this is something that, I worked with a city government down in Virginia, and they wanted to have the ability to distinguish what someone was calling for. So the example is people were calling in and they had multiple different options for taxes. So you know how it works. People call in, they press the first button they hear. So you had like property tax, some other kind of tax. They would just hit one for the first choice and go to that and leave a voicemail. Well, they had to have someone spend time sitting there every day, kind of listening to all those voicemails, sorting them out, going, okay, what really is a voicemail for our department and what's for some other tax department. So they looked at, hey, is there a way we can actually ask questions of the caller and kind of find out specifically what is it that they're really calling for? So using AI and our tool here, Workflow Studio, they're able to have the call come in, they prompt the caller, they're using Gemini to kind of analyze, okay, what is this really for? They play the response, and then, okay, I'm going to route that call to this tax department because that's the right one. For contact center, many of you may be using ECC, very good contact center for voice, but really that's kind of what it was good for. It was a good voice contact center. For example, if you wanted to have email as well, you had to use maybe the Outlook client or your own email client for that. What we do actually with Mitel CX is we integrate that all into a single client. So this client is kind of doing everything. So this is my tie-in to have my collaboration, my call control, but also it's a single pane of glass. Whether I get a phone call, an SMS, an email, all the media types come into the single tool so I can actually do more than just voice. As we know, more and more over time, younger generations are not, they don't really want to call in, they want to email or text, especially text. And so this is a way of kind of doing that, having that single call all go to one pane of glass. We can also do things like video chat. So as an example, maybe I'm on, a chat, whatever, or I'm on a call with you, but I want to switch to video. I can do things like that. I can also do, as I mentioned, omni-channel, where I've got voice, chat, email, even social media can be used. So I could do any of those. And then as far as analytics go, we can build dashboards specifically. So many of you may use, for example, a Bright Metrics, which was very big with the ShoreTel Connect platform. We support that as well. We can also use other tools from other, like Microsoft has tools, so that SQL database can be you can get the information right out of it and put it in the tool of your choice or one of our tools. We also have integration like with if you're doing AI, you can have a dashboard specifically to the AI. So many of you, and Mary Lou mentioned this, the Lens program. So again, Eastern uses our Revolution app to basically be the mobile app for Lens. So this is one place that you'll see it. I would also say to you that Revolution can actually do a lot more. So it's a good platform for that mobile app for Lens, but also if you have other things like, you want to have a sensor, there's an area where maybe you're worried about water coming in. You can have it where it automatically triggers something to send an alert. So if you think of the system, the way it works is you have a trigger. In this case, the mobile app is triggering and sending it to Lens, but it can also trigger and send it to a person, an email, send out an SMS. And you can see a lot of the different devices that we can integrate with that tool. So kind of a quick what's the difference between Connect and MiVoice Business? So first of all, both very good phone systems. One thing I will point to is that 50 years of development. So MiVoice Business has been around a long time. Mitel's been around for over 50 years. So kind of that development has continued. We've added a lot of features over time. And as Ed mentioned, we're doing a lot of enhancements to it today, and we continue to grow that product. Collaboration, you had the Connect UC app. We have MyCollab on our side. One thing that I get all the time from customers that have migrated is the mobile app. They were having issues with the Connect app. They find the MyCollab on their iPhone or Android a lot more stable and a lot more reliable. Also integrations, I mentioned earlier, Teams integration. So again, I can integrate in different ways. So I can have it where a very simple integration with Teams where I still have the MyCollab, but I take all the UC pieces out of it and just make it call control. And I don't have to have complexity, or I can do a full direct routing if you're familiar with that is, and have calls actually going from MiVoice Business to Teams. We also can integrate with the Zoom, as I mentioned, in their desktop workspace. Capital expense or operational expense. So again, unlike Connect, I have that option, that flexibility. When I look at virtual environments, so again, we were the first to work with VMware, but also we've added more. So in a case of Connect, you could do VMware or Hyper-V. We've also can do Nutanix or Proxmox. So many of you have felt the bite. VMware's increased a lot of their pricing in that. So we've had a lot of people looking at, well, I would like to go to a Proxmox or a Nutanix. So we've done the testing and documented those. We've also tested and documented at Amazon Web Services or Azure, so we can deploy those in those cloud environments if you wish. Quick example there, I had a customer who purchased MiVoice Business years ago, and they kept it up to date, whatever, and they were kind of like, I have this in my data center on site, but we're really moving everything to Azure. What's it going to cost to move this system to Azure? And the answer is nothing. You basically need to contact, in this case, Eastern DataComm and say, hey, I need to move this. They would do the work of actually redeploying it. But again, you own those licenses in the example I'm mentioning. It was already in a virtual environment, so it was just literally changing, where it's located and the IP addressing and things like that. So very flexible kind of for today, but also wherever you're going to go tomorrow. I mentioned the Windows server. So again, there is not a Windows server. Where Windows gets introduced in the MiVoice Business platform is if you're going to do a contact center. But for example, for a school, you would have the Mitel standard Linux, could be running on physical boxes or in a virtual environment, and you would have no Windows at all. Also, when you look at border gateways and proxies, so the Connect platform used a third party, someone called Ingate. They were a good partner. They work well. But again, MiVoice Business, we have our own session border controller. So it's nice because you have a truly all from one vendor solution there, not multiple different parties. Remote workers, if anyone's tried to deploy with the Edge Gateway, you could only have a single Edge Gateway per network. And you also had some, it was kind of a little clunky in some ways to set up. That same border gateway can be used for remote workers and for SIP proxy. So that can actually be multiple different purposes. In fact, the third one it can be used for is to do secure recording. So we, by default, encrypt every single call. So if I need to record those, that border gateway can be used to unencrypt the call to allow it to be recorded. We also can scale higher than the Connect system. Both systems use those 6900 series phones. I mentioned some of the workflow studio things, for example, with CloudLink. That's something on MiVoice Business, not on the Connect system. And in the contact center, you notice you have a lot more options with the omni-channel with CX. And again, we continue to develop with Mitel CX. It keeps adding features as time goes on. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end, and I'm going to turn it back to Mary Lou. Can I advance that? There we go. Mary Lou, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sid, and thank you, Ed. So we got through that rather quickly, but we do have some questions, and I'm sure there's going to be questions as you think about everything that we've just chatted with you today about. So a couple of things here. Make sure you scan that QR code that you're looking at as we go through the Q&As. That will take you to a form that'll let us know that you want us to reach out to you directly to talk on a one-to-one basis about how we can help you migrate from your current platform into the next. And certainly anything that's of top of mind in regards to, hey, I'm adding some team members. I need to get something done in the next couple of months as far as the licensing goes. But more importantly, especially for our education customers, we know you've got to put this through on a budget, right? So we've got to talk about over the next couple of years what that budget needs to look like, and when it's going to be most appropriate to bring that in to your administration. So we did get a couple of questions. And I'm going to go through a few of them right now, but please, as I say, feel free to continue to ask those questions, and we'll bring a few things up ourselves that we think might be something you want to think about. And I'm going to ask both Ed and Sid to join me. I might be throwing you some softballs or baseballs, Ed. So from Daniel, he's asking about a buyback program for the hardware when it comes to an early migration. So as I stated earlier, and I think Ed alluded to as well, there are some great programs and discounting that Mitel is coming to the table for. And also know for my education customers that, we still are going to be able to use state contract for this new system. So there's going to be a lot of benefits and value as we move forward. But Ed, would you just take a gander at answering what happens to the old hardware?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea that Daniel had to let's explore and get back directly with him on for people that want to do the migration now on some of the additional options we can do in terms of the existing equipment they have.
Yeah.
We'll get back to Daniel directly, and then maybe we'll communicate that to all the attendees.
Sounds good. And Daniel, just to, clarify, I don't, we're not looking to buy back hardware per se. So that hardware really is going end of life. So, if you have a certain number of ShoreTel switches in your data center, that hardware, we're not looking to take it back, if that was your question. But there are programs to make it more, easier and more budget friendly for you to make that migration. Um, Jonathan had a great question around headsets. So, Sid, as you were going through those different 6900
Mhm.
series handsets, he was asking, are there Plantronics and other headsets that are compatible with those? I don't know if you have any model numbers off the top of your head, but absolutely the answer is always that we have certain headsets that are compatible with the Mitel phones.
So the answer is yes. So 6915 and higher has a headset jack in there, and you can basically do that. So both Jabra and Plantronics have sites where they list here's the compatible headsets. So typically what I ask is if you already have headsets, tell us what you have. Most headsets will work. Ones that are on the websites that I'm mentioning are ones that are tested, right? So that's kind of the difference there.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
And then Jason had a good question around hosting on AWS or Azure. He's asking, if we lose internet connectivity, do we still have the ability for internal communications? I'm gonna punt that one over to Sid as well.
Sure. So what typically happens is, so first of all, you would have to have a local controller. So the phones need to be able to connect to something. So the way that works is if I'm going to host a system in Azure or Amazon or whatever, and I'm worried about losing connectivity, there's really two ways to kind of fix that. The first option is I'm going to use something called SD-WAN. So I'm going to have multiple different paths. I was talking to a customer yesterday that they have the internet, but they have like internet LTE as a backup, and they have SD-WAN. So either way, they can still get to that data center and go up. But if your issue is really worried about that and I want to do something different, you can have a primary controller in Amazon or Azure, but have a local on-site controller as a backup. So that way, if you lost connectivity, your phones would re-register to the local controller and you're up and running. And unlike some other vendors, that local controller would have full functionality. So it's a full PBX.
Perfect. And everybody, please, if you have additional, tag on questions to what we're answering, just pop them into the window, and we'll get to them as well. Matt is asking about Google Voice. So Matt's, mentioning here that a lot of K through 12 districts are standardizing on Google. Do we support integration with Google Voice?
So when our integration with Google, it's not with their voice platform. So that's something different again. But we can integrate with Google for some of the tools. So for example, Gmail, we do voicemail to email that can integrate the calendar integration, but we don't directly integrate with Google Voice now.
Okay, thank you, Sid.
Yep.
Kevin, I love your question here. So Kevin just popped in and said, there have been some concerns in the past regarding stability of Mitel financially. And so we definitely want to let you know that those concerns are behind us. But he also talks about product line roadmap and some of that being erratic in the past. So Ed, can you speak to the finances and what has recently occurred on the Mitel side?
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. So, we took efforts to improve our capital structure, and basically what we did was we removed debt in exchange for equity in the company. And the people who ask us to do that were actually our bondholders. So we did we modified our capital structure. The biggest thing we got out of it was it eliminated a lot of our long-term debt. It also infused $60 million immediately into the company to apply to our innovation. So the Mitel's a profitable company. We've remained EBITDA positive, and the finances are great.
And I would just add to that the whole idea as far as roadmap goes. So one of the things we're doing, because again, we've kind of grown somewhat through acquisition. So we are, like the case of Connect, not having Connect and MiVoice Business both, we're able to pour all the R&D into one product, kind of focus it and do growth there. And I've noticed, especially in the recent past, we've actually got a much more robust roadmap going forward. So I think that, there may have been issues in the past. I don't know specifically what you're talking to, but again, I think that we're in a much better path going forward.
Yeah, Kevin, if you want to tag on to that question, I do believe we've absolutely answered the stability from a Mitel finance perspective, because that was something that came up recently, but is no longer a concern at all. And I think Ed did a great job of answering why that is. But I don't understand the product line roadmap question. So happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you about that as well. I think Mitel's roadmap has always been, rather proactive and forward thinking. So Matt, I'm struggling a little bit with your question. My apologies here, but Matt, I know we know each other fairly well, but you're asking about meeting code in large shop areas and gyms, integrating strobes, visual alerts, and high output speakers for paging and notification. So I don't know if this is a question about Lens or if this is a question about how we integrate Lens to Mitel. Can you maybe tag on to that for me? And then I apologize, we can't go back and forth here.
Well,
Oh,
so you guys do paging system and stuff, right?
sure. Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
I
And
mean,
we integrate, and Matt knows this, we integrate our Lens with paging, with all of our phone systems. We have strobes, visual alerts, high output speakers. So that's all part and parcel of our solutions. So I'm just not sure where the question is.
and that would not be Mitel. Those things would be,
So
Eastern.
he's saying around the phones, how can we meet code? So the Mitel phones would be fully integrated into the Lens and all of those other solutions. But again, my apologies, I'm just not.
Oh, so what he's saying is, so, okay, so it's possible. So if you want to have something, you can have a device, an external device. I get his last answer there or question. So you can have an external device that alerts. So case in point, maybe it's a loud environment. So I want to have a strobe. I want to have something that lights, hey, the phone's ringing, we need to answer it, right?
Oh,
So
sure.
you could do things like that where you pair a device with the phone system. So we don't make those, but we can actually, use those. So it could be a light, it could be, some sounds playing loud or whatever. The phone ringers are fairly loud as well, but again, depending on the environment, I've seen that kind of thing done before. Yes.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sid. And Matt,
Yep.
we've always had that available. So at any time we can put a light next to a ringing phone and make that much more audible as well as visual. So we could talk more about that offline as well. We've got a question from Vince. How long does failover from cloud on-prem take? Is
Okay.
it seamless or do the phones have to reboot?
So the phones don't reboot. So the way it works is, and it's the same, by the way, whether it's cloud or not. So first of all, I'll give you two scenarios. So if I'm using it, and this is one of the benefits of what's called SIP trunking. So if I'm using a digital trunk, and let's say the phone system went down, okay, well, then I'm going to lose that call. But in the case I'm using SIP, once that call setup happens, let's say it was from the cloud, as long as I have a path to that carrier still, that call stays up. I lose any mid-call features, meaning I can't put it on hold, I can't transfer it because I don't have the phone system to signal. Once that call ends and I hang up the phone, it literally is like a second. I mean, it's almost instantaneous. The phone will actually re-register. You'll see it kind of blink, and all it's doing is re-registering to the secondary. So when it gets programmed by Eastern, they program what's my primary phone system, what's my secondary, and it will do that transfer seamlessly. So you won't even know. There's a little symbol that appears on the phone screen, but most users don't realize that'll show you if you're a tech. Hey, I'm on failover. I'm not on the primary. And then what we do as far as recovery, because usually that's the second question, is we don't automatically fail back to the primary. That's a manual, hey, I want to reset back to the primary in management. And the reason why we do that is you can have a situation where you have an intermittent failure. The system's going down, coming back, going down, coming back. So you want to make sure it's stable and then say, okay, let's go back to the primary. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Sid. And again,
Yep.
any question that we're not answering in its entirety, just throw another question in there and we will make sure we cover it for you. The last thing I'm seeing here is, can we get a recording of the webinar? And yes, as I mentioned in the beginning, and again, some of you may have joined just a little bit later, we are recording this entire webinar. It will be brought up on our website shortly after the webinar is over. And you have the ability to go back in, re-review it, send it to anybody else on your team that may not have been able to join us this morning. So that will all be available to you. I'll also continue to encourage you to please scan that QR code, reach out to us directly. We're really anxious to talk to all of you individually and talk about migration paths and some budgetary pricing and what we think will work best within your environment and how to get you there as easily and seamlessly as possible. We've got another question. Hey, Hosang, how are you? Haven't talked to you in a little bit. This is around Lens. Can the lockdown message be displayed on a computer or smart TV? So we're doing some fun things, Hosang, around American Time and some of their solutions. If you haven't seen that, we're actually going to be I'll put a little plug in for our innovation showcases coming up this month. We're going to actually be doing some of those and having American Time there with us. So there's the ability to have that 22-inch monitor or even larger and have those monitors which start out as a clock and some information around what's happening in the school or in the building, and then flip directly over to a lockdown message as soon as Lens is activated. So absolutely, we've been doing that for quite some time. Customers love it. And in many cases, we're putting those smart TVs or American Time devices in every single classroom in some schools. So that is definitely something we can help you with.
There was one other question I saw just to kind of address. Someone was asking about AI versus whatever. So I just want to clarify. So understand, we could do it either way. So Mitel at its core, you could do multimedia with just no AI. What AI will introduce, by the way, is some data centers, because again, AI takes lots of computing power, so that stuff tends to be in a data center. But I've got lots of customers where all they have is MiVoice Business and MCX basically on site. They're answering the call with agents, whether it's chat, whether it's voice. But if later you wanted to, you could add in AI. So those AI components I mentioned, those are optional. You don't have to. If you want to make sure you answer and you don't want live people, your customers don't want AI, they don't have to have AI. AI is an option. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sid.
Yep.
One more question in from my friend Kyle. Hey, Kyle, how are you? So the legacies, he's concerned about when software security patches are going to end. His understanding was that December 31st of 2025 this year, software security patches end. I don't believe that's correct.
Well, it is and it isn't. So we're not going to have any scheduled patches, but Mitel has the ability. So if there's a security issue, we have the ability to create a patch. But proactively, we're not creating any new patches basically after the end of this year. One other note on the slide you're talking about, this actually got updated recently. The RMA for hardware is now 2029, not 2028. So the RMA process and the end of technical support are both December 31st, 2029, not 2028.
Thank
If I
you,
may,
Sid. That's important.
Yeah, if I may,
Yeah,
Mary Lou, on the security issue. So what ends at the end of this year is new feature development. So after
right.
this year, we're not going to be doing new feature development. We're not going to be doing new feature patches. But as Sid mentions, we have the ability, if there's a security issue, to patch beyond the end of this year.
Yeah, perfect. Um, yeah,
And
and
then,
oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry, go
sorry.
ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
was going to answer the question that it had about the administration, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
Yeah. So yes, it's easy. Again, it's a web-based tool. You can go in and it again, the people, you may not know the name, but like Kirk Kruger is one of our product managers. He actually was at ShoreTel for years, and he's product manager here. So he was kind of behind the push of our current administration tool. So that should give you kind of confidence that literally we're doing something. And one plus to the tool is that tool, the administration tool, not only can manage the phone system, but it's the same tool to manage. We're adding contact center. So its vision is to have a single management tool that's easy and can manage everything, including the contact center, not just the phone system.
Yeah. And it's a great point, Kevin, because as all of us ex-Shortellians know, that was a huge piece of what made that product so great was the ease of administration. So it is something, as Sid said, when Mitel acquired ShoreTel 11 years ago now, a lot of the ShoreTel folks did go over to Mitel in that acquisition. And so there's a lot of folks over there that understand what all of those great benefits to the ShoreTel system was. And we've all been sort of hammering that we need to make sure our customers are just as comfortable with the new platform in some of these areas as they were with the old. One more just popped in. So running on Windows Server now. Will Windows updates break Connect after 2025? So that's
So
from Martin.
there's no way to actually answer that question. So if you think about it, you're asking me to have a crystal ball, but in general, I would say that, the latest patch, in fact, that's part of what we were working on was Microsoft changed some of their things and it kind of broke it. So that would be a case where we probably would look at doing some patching. But again, I can't answer that question because we don't know what Microsoft's going to do. So the assumption is we're not going to have breaks, but you never know. It's
Well,
technical, right?
I can speak to it. Kurt Kruger, I reached out to him with another person that had asked that question. So you can do Windows updates. We anticipate you'll continue to be able to do Windows updates.
I agree, but again, I can't give you a legal answer that there's no chance that nothing will go wrong. So
All right. Any last minute questions? Nope, no open questions. We'll keep this on for just another couple of minutes. I'll just encourage you again. Well, first, thank you so much for joining us. We did think this was really important to do, even though we've known for some time now that this is going to happen, that your current platform is going to need to migrate, and there's some gyrations that we're going to need to go through to get you there. We're confident. We've been doing this with our customers. Mitel's been doing this with their huge base of customers for a number of years now, and we're confident that we're going to be able to get you there seamlessly, and stay with you all. So again, please use that QR code, scan it, all of that information to us, and we will start reaching out to schedule one-on-one consultations. Take a good look at what you're doing today. And this is really important anytime you're upgrading solutions, right? Take a look at what you're configured for today, how your solution works today, and then talk about what you'd like it to do, right? It doesn't have to be a complete, I'm going to flip this to this, but it's a great time to take a look at what you're doing and what you might be able to do better, and some of the benefits that the new MiVoice Connect, MiVoice Business platform is going to be able to offer you. I know I get confused with the terminology. So my poor customers, I apologize for that. So again, thank you to our presenters. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Sid. Thank you to everybody who joined. And any last minute questions or information that you'd like, please reach out to us, and we're here for you all along the way. So I think that'll do it, but thank you again. Have a great day.